A well-respected and busy character actor in films and on television for over 3 decades, Emmy-nominated Texas native Barry Corbin played larger-than-life figures in films like Urban Cowboy, War Games, which was my first Barry Corbin, so very excited, and as well as many TV projects like Lonesome Dove, Northern Exposure, One Tree Hill. The son of a Lone Star state senator, which I learned today, had the record for quite the while, the longest filibuster, which I'm about to compete right now with this bio. I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. Corbin fell in love with being a character actor as a boy and discovered a lot of wonderful Westerns. And so that began his long ride through the screen, working on stages across the country. Urban Cowboy was his feature debut, and for the next 20 years, he was an amazing presence as ornery cowboys, tough cops, military man, and on occasion a kindly father or mentor. Town patriarch and astronaut Maurice Minifield on Northern Exposure became his best-known role, and the one that afforded him the widest character arc. He could be menacing one moment, wistful the next, and quite funny in every scene. It brought him several Emmy nominations and more work in films like No Country for Old Men. He has over 220 credits on IMDb. He's been one of the hardest working actors throughout his career. Barry and his wife Jo live in Fort Worth, and when he isn't working, are you still riding horses? There we go, okay. Even when his characters are overbearing or murderous, Barry's always found a way to make them human and likable, so much that he often steals the show. We very much appreciate Barry being here with us today. I hope if you don't know about the SAG-AFTRA strike that you will research it and learn more about why we need to get our actors back working again. Congratulations to our 2023 Ad Astra Award winner, Barry Corbin. If you want to come on up.
So I wanted to present to you your Ad
Astra Award. Thank you so much for everything.
Stubbornly independent. That's me. Where do I go? Right over here? Where? Which one?
Either one you like.
All right, I'll take this one over here.
Okay. All right.
Gotta be contrary.
We're so glad to have you here. I do have another guest to introduce, WSU professor Robert Owens, professor of history. He specializes in early American history, especially the Trans-Appalachian West. He is the author of Mr. Jefferson's Hammer, William Henry Harrison, and the Origins of American Indian Policy. Woo, that's a title. Red Dreams, White Nightmares, Pan-Indian Alliances in the Anglo-American Mind, the forthcoming Killing Over Land, Death and Diplomacy in the Early American Frontier. Those are all available from University of Oklahoma Press. He's a native of Illinois, but he also received his PhD in history from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. So I'd like to bring Robert up to the stage to have a conversation with Mr. Corbin today.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so at WSU, I'm sort of a Western historian, at least the early American West, but honestly, the reason I was thrilled to get asked to do this was I'm a huge TV and film dork, and when I heard that Maurice Minifield from Northern Exposure was coming, I was just, over the moon. So, Mr. Corbin?
Thank you, thank you. I'm much nicer than Maurice Minifield.
Yeah, well, although we'll get to that, but yes, I have to agree. Just could not have been. He actually spoke at WSU on Friday, and I have to say, in front of a large group of people, it's so rare when someone gives you exactly what you wanted when you ask them to speak. It was just absolutely wonderful. So thank you again for that. Let's see, I have a script because Melanie is smart. So, welcome to Wichita. Let's get started.
I'm glad to be here.
We're thrilled to have you here.
I'm glad to be nearly anywhere.
Let's get started by talking about your early childhood love of westerns. And I'm assuming, like a lot of actors, you're just sort of first got entranced by the movies. Could you tell us about the times you spent at the La Mesa Majestic Theater?
Well, the Majestic Theater, your parents would give you 25 cents. You'd walk down to the theater, which was, like 6 blocks, which no child will walk anymore that far. Your parents have got to take you there because if you cross the street somewhere. But back in those days, we were free little hellions, and we'd go walk to the theater, pay 7 cents to get in. So that left us 18 cents. Pay a nickel for a Coke, 13 cents. Pay a nickel for one of those all-day suckers, and that's 8 cents. We got left 8 cents. And then we'd go watch a cartoon, a cereal, and a double feature of either Wild Bill Elliott, Lash LaRue, or, sometimes Gene Autry or Roy Rogers. We didn't like them so much. They carried an orchestra around in their saddlebag. And they changed shirts all the time, So, but anyway, those were the ones. Buster Crabbe sometimes, he'd had Fuzzy Jones with him. We all liked Fuzzy Jones because he was one of the original Keystone Cops. He could do pratfalls. And we'd all if I tried to do that now, I'd break my hip. But anyway, when that was over with, which would last most of the afternoon, we'd go over with our 8 cents left, and we'd buy either a roll of caps for our cap guns, or some chewing gum or something over at the drugstore. Burley Morris's Rexall Drug. Burley Morris was a joker, and I guess he was a pretty good druggist, but I never had any of his drugs, so I don't know. Anyhow, I was fascinated by the sidekicks. The Durango Kid had Smiley Burnett, and they all had a different sidekick. I liked Smiley Burnett. I worked with his son in a miniseries called Thornbirds. His son was a team driver. He'd drive anywhere from 2 to 8 horses, and he was real good at it. I got to be where I could sort of drive a 6-up if the horses knew more than I did. But this Smiley Burnett's son could do a whole lot better than that. But anyway, that's where I got started. I'd usually buy caps for my cap pistol, rather than chewing gum. I later got addicted to chewing gum, but now I can't chew it because I got dentures and it pulls them loose.
They never warned you about that, actually, the dangers of chewing gum.
No, you got to give up all kinds of stuff when you get old. I was kind of washing my dentures out at Disney World one time. A little kid was standing there like that. And I held them up for him. I said, always brush your teeth after you eat. If you don't, you'd have to take them out to wash them. He did that.
future dentist was born.
Yeah.
So you end up going to college at Texas Tech
Texas Tech.
and studying
Double T.
theater arts. Okay.
Yeah.
You remember? I'm guessing you probably had to be in some stage productions. And do you remember any of them? Do you have some favorites?
Oh yeah, yeah. I played Sir John Falstaff when I was 20 years old, I guess I was, and I weighed about 140 pounds. So I had to have a suit made stuffed with feathers. That was about here, and I played Sir John Falstaff in Merry Wives of Windsor. He said, "Now, Mr. Brooke, you come to know what hath passed between me and Ford's wife. I will not lie to you. I was at her house there, she appointed me, and I fared very ill-favoredly, Master Brooke. After we had embraced, kissed, and as it were, spoke the prologue to our comedy, in came one Mistress Page, informed us of Ford's approach, and through her invention and Ford's wife's direction, conveyed me into a buck basket. By the Lord, a buck basket, crammed me in with foul shirts, smocks, socks, and greasy napkins. That, Master Brooke, there was the rankest compound of villainous smell that ever offended the nostril.
Outstanding. Yes, in case you were confused and thought I was talking to Ben Johnson, Mr. Corbin is classically trained in addition to the horsey stuff. I think you knocked that one out of the park. So eventually you, after time in the military, you end up going to Los Angeles to try and pursue a career?
No. It was more circuitous than that. I flipped a coin in Denver to decide whether to go to Los Angeles or New York. New York won, and I went to New York, and I was there for about 15 years. And
doing theater or?
Doing theater, yeah. I never did a film. Actually, I did a couple of television things, and I did a made-for-TV afternoon movie. But I never did a real, studio film until I did Urban Cowboy.
That was actually, you're leading in my next one. So, again, you watch that movie, and of course he's just ridiculously perfect for it, but how did you, at that time, as you say, you weren't like a known figure in films, how did you get that role?
Well, I went out to California in '77, and I kept having to go back to New York and regional theaters to make a living, keep my unemployment insurance up. And I also wrote plays for National Public Radio. And I'd write 15-minute plays. They had a program called Popcorn Theater. And they'd do 4 15-minute plays a week. And almost every, once a month they'd do the Popcorn Theater, 4 15-minute plays. And then almost every month I had one in there. They paid $100 for the script, so I only did a first draft and didn't do anything else. And then they'd pay $50 for the actors. Now the actors had to rehearse a little bit, So I got paid better than they did. And I would always try to write something for me or my wife at the time to act in, so I'd get 150 at least. Maybe I'd get 200 if we were both acting in it. My rent in Hollywood at that time was $90 a month. So I could pay the rent on what I got for the NPR things. So I was kind of lean there for a while, but I'd written a couple of plays, and I was casting one of them when I got the call for Urban Cowboy, and they said, you need to go over to Paramount and read for this part. Well, I was dressed kind of rattier than I am now, but I had a pair of old rough-out boots and some worn-out jeans and a chambray shirt and an old spelt hat that was all wadded up. Looked like Dick Farnsworth said to Steve McQueen when he was doubling, said, Steve, where'd you get that hat? It looks like yesterday's taco that somebody sat on. Well, that's the way my hat looked. It didn't, Steve McQueen didn't take kindly to that. Dick Farnsworth lost that job. But anyhow, I went over there and I met Jim Bridges, who was the director, and Aaron Latham, who wrote the script, and the casting director, Marion Dougherty. And all those people are dead now. And some of them are younger than me. But anyway, I met those people and read for them. And I went back to the theater. I was going to play the lead in this play that I'd written called Sucker Rod Smith and the Cisco Kid. And I was going to play the lead in it, but they called me and asked me to come in and meet John Travolta because he had the last word in who was cast in the play, in that movie. So I went in and met him. He came in and said, Bo, we're going to have a lot of fun on this one. And I said, yeah, I imagine you are. And nobody told me I had a job. And nobody told me I had a job. And then he left, and the director said, why don't you go over to wardrobe and leave him your hat and your boots, and you take a new pair of hat and boots, or a new pair of boots and take a hat and break them in. And I thought, well, that's a sneaky way to get my old worn out boots and hat, but I'll trade anyway. And so anyway, I did that. Then I went back to casting. And I got a call that night that I had the part. And I thought it was probably one day. I didn't know it was
Actually, a fairly important part of the movie, yeah.
And so they sent me the script, and I read it, and I said, are you sure? They said, yeah, they got the star power in John Travolta. They cast a bunch of unknowns for cheap. So they got Deborah Winger, who'd done one thing, I think, and Scott Glenn, who'd been cut out of Apocalypse Now.
Right.
And who else? Everybody, nobody had a real name in film in that movie. So people all thought that they went down to Houston and scoured around in the petrochemical plants until they found one that got fired, and they hired me to be Uncle Bob. Well, no, I was actually an actor before, but nobody knew that. And then when I finished that, we shot that movie, and then I went home, and before it started, I did Stir Crazy and Any Which Way You Can, and I became the local sheriff on Dallas. I was sheriff for the ranch. So anything that happened in Dallas was out of my jurisdiction, so I never knew who shot JR. But anyway, I was doing all these things, and then they opened Urban Cowboy. And of course, Dallas had been on already. Urban Cowboy came on, and it was a premiere at the Egyptian Theater, which was 3 blocks from where I lived in Hollywood. So I walked over there to the Egyptian Theater to see the premiere. And I'm sitting there watching it. Oh, this is pretty good. Got a lot of good music in it. Yeah, I think this might be a moderate hit. And this woman sitting in front of me, she got all caught up in it. When I go up the stairs, up to the up toward heaven and get struck by lightning and die. And then they had my funeral, and this woman started sobbing when I died, and she started wailing when I had my funeral. And I reached up and tapped her on the shoulder. I said, "It's all right, honey, I'm right here." She turned around and looked at me, threw her box of popcorn right in my face, and jumped up and ran out of the theater. I don't reckon she ever saw the end of it, because she never came back. I mean, she was gone. Probably run out in traffic and got hit. But anyhow, that was pretty interesting, I thought.
She wasn't counting on that immersive experience in the film.
No.
Let's see. All right, so now, obviously that was a big one. But then again, for a lot of us, the role of former astronaut Maurice Minifield on Northern Exposure really just because you had good, steady work. And just, I've actually been rewatching the series recently. Just the writing is so great.
It was great writing until they got rid of the original producers and brought in another producer. And this producer, the one they brought in, later on after it was canceled, said, "Well, I never liked the show anyway. It's too precious." So he tried to unprecious it.
Well, I guess he did that.
And he certainly did that. I used to be on the phone every time I'd get a new script. I said, "You guys what are you trying to do, cancel this show?" And, "Oh, no, we're all right." I got on the phone with, what's that guy's name? Tartikoff, I think. Brandon Tartikoff. And I said, "Brandon, you're canceling us." And he said, "Oh, no, it's not decided yet." I said, "You know, it is decided." And John Cullum was in the room with me. It was a kind of a conference call. And he was going, he said, "You're gonna get us canceled." And I said, "John, we're already canceled. I'm just having fun here." And sure enough, by that time, I was the only one nominated for an Emmy in the whole show. And they said, and the producer's name was David Chase.
Right.
Yeah, I want to go on record with that because he later did The Sopranos, and I was never on that. I probably wouldn't have been anyway, but I was definitely never on that. I was never under consideration. But anyhow, they said, "You can't go to the Emmys." And I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, because you'll be working Monday and you don't have, then you can't go down there. You can't get back in time for work." I said, "Oh, all right. Well, that's going to look interesting in the trade papers, isn't it?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I mean, I've got to publish this too." And he said, "Oh, you can go. But we don't have it in our budget to get you a hotel or a plane flight there or a limousine when you go to the Emmys. I said, oh, that's all right. I'll fly the Alaska Airline down there and stay in the Motel 6. And I'll take the cheapest transport I can find. Well, nobody said anything right then, so I called a friend of mine who provided all the horses for Lonesome Dove, Jim Cleary. And I said, Jim, have you got a couple of horses? One of them's got to be bomb-proof, and the other one, it's got to be used to crowds at least. And he said, oh, yeah, I've got a couple of these. I said, are they flashy looking? He said, yeah, they're flashy looking. Would they go with a tuxedo? He said, what the hell are you going to do? I said, well, I also need a permit to ride a horse on the streets of Pasadena on this particular Sunday night. He said, uh-oh. What is it? I said, my daughter and I are going to ride horseback to the Emmys. How much is that going to cost me? He said, not a damn thing. I want to see you do it. So he provided the horses. As it turned out, they provided a hotel room and plane flight and a limousine. But I didn't know how I was going to get rid of the horses. I thought I'd have to tie them to a tree or something out there. But the Wranglers got in the limousine, and they rode the limousine up. They jumped out and ran and got the horses when we got off. But my horse was kind of young, and he a little nervous. And so when we got to the red carpet, he raised his tail and left him a little souvenir. Then we went up to where they were asking questions, put this on nationwide television. Army Archer. Well, you picked an interesting way to come into the Emmys. Is there a story behind that? That gave me an opening. I said, well, apparently the producers and CBS and Universal didn't make enough money selling sweatshirts and coffee cups to put it in their budget to fly me down here or hire a limousine or something, so I took the cheapest transport I could find. Well, I didn't work for CBS or NBC or Universal or The Sopranos, and I'm just as happy about that. It was worth it.
Whether to go with another northern exposure question. Maybe we'll circle back if we're short. So after that show ends, out of 6 seasons, the first 5 were really good. After northern exposure ends, you end up buying a 15-acre ranch east of Fort Worth. Is this true? It used to belong to Bobby Valentine, the ranger.
That's right. I bought it from Bobby Valentine.
Wow. Did you ever get to meet Nolan Ryan?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Nolan raises cattle. He's a cowboy. I knew Nolan from the Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma. So yeah, I've known Nolan for a long time.
So you start out, in case anyone's looking to start their own cattle ranch, you had 6 head of cattle and a bull, and that's where it started?
6 steers. No. There was 3 steers, a cow who was half longhorn, half I don't know, dairy cow. I think it was maybe a Guernsey or something. And a bull. Well, the bull I didn't have yet. I just had the 3 steers and the cow, and that was it. I had several horses. I was really getting into the horse business, I thought, but I never could come to sell one. I'd either give them away or keep them till they died. And so I got the bull by going to, I went to Will Rogers' birthplace up in Claremore, Oklahoma.
Oh, sure.
And I had to present an award to a fellow that is now the manager of the whatever they call him of the John Wayne Museum in Winterset, Iowa. A guy named what's his name? Brian Downs. That's right. And so I had to present an award to him for writing about Will Rogers. He wrote something for the Chicago Times about Will Rogers. And at that time, Jim Rogers, Will Rogers' youngest son, who survived, was still alive. And I told a story about my neighbor, who were, two retired people, man and his wife. And my daughter gave me a buffalo calf for my birthday that she bought from a petting zoo or something. And she gave it to me for my birthday, and then the thing got terrified, and I couldn't get it out of the trailer. So we left it in the trailer overnight. And then Shannon, my daughter, opened the trailer up in the morning. The thing jumped out and ran and jumped through the fence into my neighbor's yard. And she came up and said, "Buffalo's out." I said, "Oh, okay." And I got dressed in a t-shirt and my boots and went down to saddle my horse. Went over there into my neighbor's yard, and my horse was a pretty good cutting horse. And so I was trying to keep the horse out of the swimming pool. And so I was running back and forth, and I'd slide to a stop, and when the buffalo had turned back with him. So I was plowing big ruts in their yard, in their lawn back there. And the man and his wife came, this was early morning, the man and his wife came out in their bathrobes holding coffee cups, watching. Like that. And the woman couldn't get her mind around the fact that there was a buffalo in her yard. So she said, "Well, Barry, you look magnificent on that horse." It was like I was doing the show for him, like I enjoyed this. And I said, "Thank you." And finally got the buffalo back over to my pasture. And he grew up and got old, and he got older, got about 5.5 feet at the hump. And he was getting big enough to jump the fence, and I was living in the middle of town, and I figured I got to get rid of this thing. And so I put the word out that I wanted to sell an adolescent buffalo bull. And a guy called me and said he said he's got some buffalo cows. And I said, "Well, you're exactly the guy I want to talk to. Come out and look at him." He'd come out and he looked like a hobbit. He was a short man, wearing boots and all this, but he was a little kind of square little guy. He comes out and looks. He said, I said, "Well, I'll go out and get him. He's in the back pasture." So I started walking out there. He said, "Wait a minute, aren't you going to take your horse out there?" I said, "No. He's not used to seeing me on the horse. He'd kill my horse." And he said, "Oh." So I go out and give him some range cubes, and he walks up there with me. And the guy looks at him and says, "Well, I'll buy him." I said, "Okay, well, you bring a trailer out here and some panels, and we'll build a pen to put him in and load him up." He He said, okay, well, in about 2 or 3 days, he comes rattling down there with a bunch of panels tied to the sides of his stock trailer. And I go out and get the buffalo again. I got range cubes scattered around inside the little enclosure we built. Buffalo comes in, starts eating the range cubes. He said, well, he looks gentle. I'm going to get acquainted with him. I said, well, I wouldn't. He walks in the gate and starts walking over toward him. And Buffalo goes. And I say, yes, you, he gets up closer to him, sticks his hand out, and that buffalo goes like that and ripped his new Wranglers from here to his belt. Oof. And he backed off and started to run. I said, don't back out, don't run, and don't look at him, look at the ground. And he backs out. He said, what happened? What happened? He tried to kill me. I said, no, if he wanted to kill you, you'd be dead. Now, all he wanted to do was get you away from his food. I said, do you still want him? He said, no. Oh, yeah, but how are we going to load him? I said, okay, I'll show you. I go in there and throw a handful of range cubes in the trailer. He jumps up in there. I shut the gate. I say, okay, he's yours. So he took him home, and a year later he called me and said, your buffalo killed my best bull. And I said, what in the hell was you doing in there with your best bull? He said, well, I thought they'd be friends. I said, no, that don't work that way. Put them out there with buffalo cows and leave them alone. And so that was that.
For the record, he was delicious.
Anyway, I told that story to Jim Rogers, and he said, I've never known anybody who told the story without any point to it that was that long since Pop died. And I thought that was the biggest compliment I've ever had. They gave me that bull, the buffalo, the real bull from Will Rogers herd. It had the dog iron brand on it. So
Very cool.
yeah.
That's probably a natural transition to, so post-northern exposure, and then you're doing some ranching, and then you actually start working more what a lot of us associate you with in actual westerns. Journeyman with Willie Nelson,
Yeah.
Crossfire Trail with Tom Selleck. Do you have any sort of memories of those shoots?
Well, the Journeyman, most people haven't seen it. I got a call from Ernie Borgnine one morning. He said, I watched a movie with you last night that didn't make any sense. There was nobody to pull for in this whole movie. And I said, what was the name of it? He said, I don't know, something with a J. It is a Western. I said, The Journeyman. Yeah, everybody's hateful in that thing. The only guy you like is the priest, and he don't do anything. So that was that. That was The Journeyman.
No Willie Nelson stories? Is that?
Well, Crossfire Trail, I'll tell you a story about Wilford Brimley. Wilford Brimley wanted long hair for the thing. I don't know why, but he wanted this long gray wig. And of course, after 5 minutes wearing it, he didn't want it anymore. It was already established, so he's got to wear it. And but then he and I were sitting in the bar, and I don't know if you ever knew Wilford. Wilford was somewhat cranky.
That would be on brand.
And we were sitting there talking, and he's facing the door, and we're just talking about, I don't remember what we're talking about. He looked past me and he said, Barry, who is that monkey over there? I said, well, he's a producer, Wilford. He said, I know he's a producer, but what the hell does he do? This guy came in wearing the Tom Mix hat, and you know, he's from New York, and wearing chaps and all kind of stuff, and looked like an ambulatory mushroom with that big hat on. And I said, Wilford, just, you know, calm down. You don't need to antagonize everybody. And but anyway, he was that way. I went going to go have breakfast with Ben Johnson one time, and down in Houston we were doing roping, and he stops and he looks in the coffee shop. He said, "Let's go sit out here in the lobby for a little bit. I want to talk to you." I said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "Wilford's in there. He'll embarrass me." Somebody come ask him for an autograph. He said, "Get the hell away from me. Can't you see I'm busy eating?" I liked him a lot, but most people, you know, were afraid of him.
As I recall, that was late career. He scared people into eating oatmeal. He just intimidated us into trying to.
Yeah.
Actually, I hope Melanie's okay. I had one question I thought was a burning question to ask you, and hopefully we'll get some clickbait for this interview. You have worked with Sam Elliott, great Sam Elliott. You have worked with Tom Selleck. I think America wants to know who has the better mustache, would you say?
Between them?
Yes.
Me? No, I guess Sam's got a better one. I don't know. Tom, I don't know that well. I know Sam real well. I've known Sam for probably 40 years. But
what was the first time you worked with Sam Elliott?
A thing called Murder in Texas. I was the prosecuting attorney, and Sam was the murderer. He was a doctor who murdered his wife so he could marry some other hot chick who was played by Catherine Ross. The one he killed was played by Farrah Fawcett, and her father was played by Andy Griffith. So it was an interesting mix there.
And in real life, he ended up marrying Catherine Ross.
Yeah. Yeah, they were already an item, but I don't think they were quite married yet.
So now, speaking of murders and continuing westerns, when we get into this century, again, one of the sort of more impactful films you were in was No Country for Old Men. You played Tommy. You can plug that. He wasn't the murderer in that one. So you played Uncle Ellis, the uncle of Tommy Lee Jones's sheriff character, and a guy who had been wounded in the line of duty.
I was my brother's deputy, and my brother was Tommy Lee's father, and I'd been paralyzed by being shot by somebody who was in prison, and Tommy Lee asked me, "Well, what would you do if he got out?" I said, "I don't know, probably nothing. You just got to let it go. After a while, you got to put a tourniquet on it." So that's sort of the philosophy he had.
So, I have in my notes. So, playing someone with a disability, you've actually been very public about your own struggles with alopecia and so forth. Did that inform your performance at all, or is it just sort of?
I don't know. I was actually they had to rent an airplane to take me from Dayton, Kansas at the end of this.
Oh, right.
year
Okay. right after.
right
Trail.
into Marfa, Texas. I had to do Ellis the next day, and I spent 2 days in a wheelchair. Well, 2 days in the wheelchair made me a lot sorer than riding that horse all that time. It's a chore to be on one of those
I
things.
suspect so, yeah. Let's see. Now, so I've been talking a lot about your TV roles and film roles and so forth, but you've also done quite a bit of voiceover work as well, and again, for like a whole new generation of folks. Do you have some sort of favorite examples of voice work that you've done or things that you found particularly interesting?
Well, I did one for some guys in Oklahoma who did a documentary about there was no oil early in World War II for the Allies.
Right.
The Germans had oil from Russia.
Right.
But we couldn't get the oil that the British used in Saudi, in the Arabia, because they had to come through the Suez Canal, and there was U-boats all over the Mediterranean. So they'd sink most of the oilers that were coming in. So they had a small amount of oil, I think, in Scotland. But they didn't have any oil anywhere else that we knew of. And they contacted an Oklahoma oil man, and he sent a crew over there to explore for oil, and they found oil in Sherwood Forest. And they worked a year. They drilled several wells that were good, and they had to put camouflage over the whole forest so that the Germans in the air wouldn't see them.
Right.
And this crew came in and lived in a monastery with a bunch of monks, with 2 monks. All the rest of the monks were at war.
This sounds like the beginning of a bar joke, but please continue.
No, it's all true, and there is some funny stuff in it, but it's most deadly serious. These guys were over there for over a year, and they fueled. They actually were responsible for fueling D-Day.
Wow.
So that's how important this deal was. And most people never heard of it. You ought to get that. What is the name of that? What's the name of the documentary? Yeah, Sherwood Forest Top Secret. PBS.com, I think. .org.
Definitely one to check out. Let's see. But you've done pretty extensive voice work. Oh, yes, I almost forgot you were once the fire chief on King of the Hill.
Oh yeah,
My absolute favorites.
I did that over the phone.
Really? You literally phoned it in. You can't tell when you see the episode.
Well, it was. I was on the phone with the engineer in California, the fellow that was the big producer of the whole thing down in Austin,
Right,
and
Mike
I was
Judge.
in Fort Worth. So that's the way we did it.
Let's see. Also became the voice of Fort Worth's country station 99.5 The Wolf.
Yeah, I did that for about a dozen years, and then they, without my knowledge, they decided they'd had enough. So they quit paying me. That's how I found out I was fired. I went I did a thing on the internet thanking them for very profitable and happy 20 years. I appreciate everything they did for me. And just thank you very much. I appreciate it. My gosh, I appreciate that. They did get me, they did help me get through some rough spots.
So, can you take us through this as an actor when you're doing a film or television spot versus just a voiceover? Is the process completely different, or is it more or less the same? Get ready for that?
It's different. I mean, it's usually they just what they want is what they've heard me do as in a show, some show. Sometimes they have me do some kind of an accent or something, but most of the time it's they just want to.
They just want to hear Barry Corbin.
Yeah.
I'm told one of your favorites, you've also done narrative work, your narration for Buffalo Altar, a Texas Symphony.
Yeah, well that's more of that, that's a stage show really. I do the narration. It's written by Stephen Harrigan, and Todd Frazier wrote the music. He's a classically trained musician. And it's really written for an orchestra, but I've done it, I've only done it once with a full orchestra. I've done it other times with the piano and percussion and a lot of other things like horseshoes hanging up and people hitting them, different things like that. And it's a very interesting story.
Is that more fun than doing a filmed piece, or just a different kind of fun?
Oh, it's a different kind. You know, it's a live theater experience. And they recorded one deal, and when we first did it with the orchestra. And I don't know what's happened to that recording. I can't find it. I gave my last copy of it away, so I don't know what's happened to it.
Enough. Then more recently, just a partial list. Your credits include The Ranch, Modern Family, as an ABC comedy, Better Call Saul, which was really, I know a lot of us in Wichita really liked Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
Lone Star, Tulsa King. Do you notice anything different from when you show up to set now as opposed to, like, I think back in the late 70s you were on MASH or something, but is it different now working at this stage in your career versus, say, when you were starting out?
Well, since COVID, of course, it's changed a lot. And also since, I mean, you know, there's all kinds of changes. I mean, the whole business has changed. It's not nearly as personal. It's more business-like now, and which in a way is good, in a way is you know, not so good. But that's you know, that's a natural change. So I go along with it.
And you are still rolling. Again, there are certain limitations to what we might talk about because there is still a strike going on. But you are not retired. You are continuing to take projects.
I'm working right, but I'm not working. I'm not breaking the strike. I'm doing a stage show, which I do kind of what we're doing here, except to do it by myself.
I would imagine the audience.
I come out and I talk for about 45 minutes, and then we take an intermission, and then we come back and I answer questions for however long people have any questions for. Then I sit in the lobby and sign autographs and take pictures until everybody gets tired and goes home. and then I'd go find a bar or something.
Well, we do have those in town. Actually, does that sound like a good transition? Should we maybe take a few questions from the
Yeah,
audience?
take
Is
the
that-
questions. Let's see if anybody's got any. Yes, sir.
I'll shout. I'm just curious at this point, are there any roles or type of roles you haven't done that you'd like to do? And is there anyone you haven't had a chance to work with that you'd like to work with still?
Well, most of them are dead. I don't really, I don't keep up with too much, and I really don't know who anybody under 50 is. I mean, it could be the most famous guy in the world, and I'm doing a movie with him. I don't know who he is. So that's, I'm sort of an old relic, but I'm still having fun. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk a little bit about your role on One Tree Hill as Whitey and what your favorite part of that was?
Oh, okay, Whitey. Well, for those of you who missed One Tree Hill, Whitey was the basketball coach in high school. And he was a very wise man, gave students all kinds of wise advice. Most of my advice for teenagers is to try to outrun the cops. But Whitey wouldn't say that. Yes, sir.
I grew up in Lubbock, Texas, and probably saw very early productions at the Lubbock Community Theater. I would like to give you the program to that because my dad was in the play Bus Stop.
What was your dad?
My dad's name was Roy Friend. He played the drunk.
Yeah.
And then his friend Doyle Boring was the ranch hand.
Yeah.
And my dad told me and my brother that after rehearsal, Doyle would play the
Is
guitar.
Roy still living?
No, he passed away about 5 years ago. And
I had some contact with him for a little while.
right. And if I may, can I give you the program to keep?
Do what?
I want to give you the Bus Stop program that I got from my dad.
He'd like to give you a program for you to keep
Oh,
as a
I'd
souvenir.
love it. Thank you. My gosh, you kind of look like Roy.
Can you sign his script?
Yeah.
I think Doyle's still living. He was the one who turned the jokes.
Yeah, Roy, he's a
Yes, sir.
good guy.
Yes, sir.
That's kind of a sneaky way to get an autograph, but still very touching.
Yeah. I played Doyle's part in the HBO production of Bus Stop.
Oh, okay. And then my dad also was in production as the director of G.W. Bailey.
Oh, yeah, GW
Yeah.
living out in California.
Is he?
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy that.
Oh, I certainly will.
It's pretty old, it's fragile.
Very cool. Very cool. Did somebody else have a question for Mr. Corbin? I have no compunctions about asking for a minute-by-minute recitation of northern exposure. Somebody else a chance first.
Mr. Corbin, this is kind of more of a comment. When I saw that you were going to be in Wichita for this, I had to tell you this. Your line in war games is a line that I've used quite a bit in my own line of work.
About the spark plug?
Yes, how did you guess?
Yeah, well, that happened by accident. When Matthew Broderick came down and pushed that Air Force guy away from his computer and started typing in things, the guy he pushed away was our technical advisor. He was a major in the Air Force. And he said, wait a minute, I wouldn't allow this kid to get in my computer without a direct order from the general. Well, Badham, who had told me when he cast me just to say anything I wanted to, said, can you think of a colorful way to order this kid into the computer? And I said, yeah, I believe I can. Now, Kane, put your fingers in your ears. I said, he said, you don't tell me what it is? I said, no, let's just shoot it. And they rolled camera, and I said, God damn it, I'd rather piss on the spark plug than that boy can do any good. And then everybody laughed, you know. And then he said, well, we got to do it again. A lot of it's just a joke. I didn't think they were going to use it. And they used it. And I figured I was going to re-record it. Well, the way that came about was that my cousin, you can take your fingers out of your ears now. My cousin, who I didn't like, Ronnie, he used to find clods with rocks in them and throw them at me. I'd find clods that didn't have rocks in them and throw it at him, but he'd throw rocks at me. And so I was always trying to figure a way to get even with him. So we were out in the field one day, and the tractor was running for some reason. My granddad's friend Roosevelt had left the motor running. He went off to do his business somewhere, and I told Ronnie, I said, why don't you get up on that fender there, because he said he wanted to go pee. So why don't you get up on that fender there and pee on that thing right there? I said, if you do it, I got a quarter in my pocket. If you do it, I'll give you that quarter. And so he did it. And the electric stream goes running up that, comes to its terminus, about his prostate, I guess. He goes sailing out 2 rows over, hits the ground. I thought maybe I'd gelded him, but unfortunately he did have children later. And, I don't know what he's doing now. He used to live in his brother's backyard in a trailer house. And I hope his children grew up healthy. I don't know. But anyway, that was the story behind that.
That's an important safety tip, actually, if you're on a tractor.
Anybody else got a question?
Oh, I think we have a couple over this way.
Mr. Corbin, can you talk a little bit about working with the Coen brothers?
Yeah, the Coen brothers, they directed No Country for Old Men, as you probably know. Well, Joel and Ethan, they've been making movies since they were teenagers. and they've got their own way of working. They hired me after they saw every old man in the country. And they didn't even see me for it. I'd met him before, but I'd never worked with him. But they finally called my manager and asked if I would do this part of Uncle Ellis. And I said, well, send me the script. And then I started reading it, and all this is bloody and awful stuff. And I thought, well, I don't know if I want to do this or not. Then I got to that one scene where Uncle Ellis does his deal. And I thought, well, wow, man. And I didn't even finish reading the script. I called my manager up and I said, well, hell yes, I'll do it. That scene's the movie. And it was. It gives the whole movie meaning. And I mean, a lot of it just awful to watch, But anyway, I did it, and when we were doing it, there was rattlesnakes under that shack. I'd do that, and you'd hear rattling. And when Tommy Lee come in, well, I told the cat wranglers, these two women there, I said, we're going to keep these cats inside here because if they go outside, you're not ever going to see them again. And they said, why? And I said, well, because there's rattlesnakes under the floor and there's coyotes all in that brush out there, right outside here, waiting for us to leave something for them to eat. And so oh, okay. Well, if you watch the movie, when Tommy Lee comes in the door the first time, a cat runs out. That's it. We never saw him again. But then, I forget where I was headed now.
The director's style.
Yeah, the director. That I asked the directors after we finished shooting. I said, what do you guys ever give any direction? Because when they'd shoot a scene, they'd go, let's do it again. And then we'd do it again. Good, print. Let's move on. So Tommy Lee and I'd go outside. Tommy Lee is kind of a suspicious fella. And we'd go outside and he said, what do you think about these guys? And I said, well, they seem all right to me. I don't know. Why? He said, do you think they're talking about us? And I said, well, I imagine they are. They're looking at us. Why do you care? And he said, I think they're making fun of us. I said, why? And he said, because an old brother, where art thou? They're making fun of our music. I said, no. That's a tribute, Tommy Lee. It's a tribute to 1930s films. It's got nothing to do with us. Oh, I don't know. And so anyway, we went through all that. And so I asked him, I said, do you guys ever give anybody any direction? They said, if we cast it right, we don't have to. Well, that's the smartest thing any director ever said to me. I mean, Shannon, I think, agrees with it, but she never said that to me. But the Corbin brothers, they're pretty smart cookies. They do some pretty good pretty good thing. Almost everything they've done I liked, you know, one level or another. Well, I guess everybody's tired of sitting in these comfortable seats. We just well get on out of here, go have something to drink.
I was led to believe if a person wanted to purchase a DVD of Trail End, they would be able to do that here today.
I believe we could sit out there. I'll tell you what, Shannon and I'll sit out there and sign every copy of the DVD that she can sell. How does that sound?
We have a round of applause for Mr. Barry Corbin, please.